forced to leave their home after their ABS-1V grandmother passed away. This photo was taken on their last day.
Murders being haunted by the spirit of their victims is way more common than you would guess, and there are several cases that involve this. Mark Bridger abducted, sexually assaulted, and murdered a 5-year-old girl back in 2012. Her name was April Jones. He was later sentenced to life, but while in prison, he had told another inmate that he often saw April's apparition appear in his cell almost every night.
Wow.
In 2013, a 30-year-old man named Victor Amiwaga shot and killed 2 taxi drivers in Ghana. Ever since, the second victim's ghost began haunting him. The man who he killed began appearing in his dreams, and he even slapped him while he slept. It got to the point where Victor never got any sleep, so he finally confessed to a friend about the murders, and he was later sent to prison.
Is it an actual haunting that's occurring, and it's actually physical manifestations of the spirit, or is this a case of...
What are some of the strangest ways that police have tried to catch a killer? Well, in 1860, the body of 3-year-old Seville Kent was found at the bottom of an outhouse. But there was something very strange found next to his body. There was a woman's bra. So police decided that they were going to make all of the women that lived inside the Kent estate try on the bra and then convict the woman who it fit best. And even stranger than that was who fit into the bra. It was the boy's nanny. The whole story is full of so many twists and turns and juicy gossip that I had to cover the whole thing on the podcast this week. It's maybe the only time a woman's gone on trial for the fit of a bra.
I may or may not have climbed up because there's no stairs.
Kills you made demon. Look at these yellow. We can have its way with me with the market. It's the last place we have left. I won't give you the combination.
Imagine getting arrested for having a child with a dead body. Jennifer Burrows is a 26-year-old who was working at a morgue when she was arrested after a DNA test proved her child's father was a dead body she was supposed to autopsy. But it actually gets worse from here, because while Jennifer was working as an assistant pathologist at the morgue, she had relations with more than 60 bodies, belonging to men aged 17 to 71 years old. She did this for 2 years until it led to the birth of her son. Her son's father was a 57-year-old veterinarian from Texas, who passed away in a car accident in 2017. Jennifer was charged with 158 counts of indecent treatment of a corpse. Many psychologists and experts have debated why someone would do this. The reasons range from curiosity to severe mental illness. Some even believe Jennifer was suffering from psychosis. Alright, after all that, I don't really know how to end this video, so stay safe out there and follow for more.
There are faceless people that roam Japan. In Heian-kyo, a fisherman decided to fish in a sacred koi pond near a graveyard belonging to the emperor. His wife told him not to go there, but the fisherman did not listen. On his way, another fisherman warned him, but still, he ignored him and continued on his path. When he reached the pond, he was greeted by a beautiful young woman. She kindly asked him not to fish in the pond. But just like before, he didn't listen. The woman's face vanished without warning, leaving only a blank canvas. The fisherman rushed back home in fear. When he came home, his wife confronted him about his disrespect. Then, just like the woman at the pond, his wife's face disappeared, revealing herself to be a note parabo. Though the man doesn't know what future awaits him, the only thing he is sure of is that
Japanese yokai, Oitekebori. Oitekebori hunts fishermen and people who come too close to its home in the canals. Its name comes from a slang of the phrase oite-ike, meaning drop it and get out of here. The origin of Oitekebori is not well known. Some say it's a kappa who is hungry and lazy to fish on his own, and some also say it's a tanuki playing his usual tricks.
Scary facts that will make your skin crawl. In 2014, Harvard University discovered that 2 books inside their library, which were from the mid-1880s, were actually bound together using human skin. One of the books, named Destinies of the Soul, was written by Dr. Ludovic Bolland. In the book, Dr. Booland wrote a note which explained, "A book about the human soul deserved to have a human covering."
The Anthill Kids Cult, Part 5. This is one of the most gruesome parts, so big trigger warning. Even if you can handle these type of topics, you might be very, very disturbed. Hi, I'm Julie and I talk about true crime, dark history, and all things spooky, so if you like that, please follow me. So after the freezing baby incident, the authorities came and raided the place again in 1985 and took away all 14 children, thank God. Of course, this didn't stop them from having babies, so every time that they had a new baby, the authorities would have to come in and take them away again. Once the children were all gone, things spiraled completely out of control. Many of the cult members tried to escape, but none were ever successful. One of the members that tried to escape was actually Rock's second wife, Giselle. It was actually Giselle's idea to leave the baby out in the cold, but despite that, really bad things happened to this woman on the commune. Rock found out that Giselle was trying to escape the commune and then threw a hunting knife at her, which landed in her thigh and created a 3-inch deep wound. Rock's response to this was to have a beer and then take a nap, and then hours later wanted to operate on her leg. It had been so long since her initial injury at this point that her leg began to clot and swell. Rock pressed on her wound until it opened back up again, and then he proceeded to pour boiling hot water in her wound repeatedly. And then he filled the wound up with salt and olive oil. Somehow Giselle survived this surgery. He also blowtorched one of his wife's stomach while she was pregnant. One of his favorite things to do was blowtorch people. He even blowtorched one of his wives on her back until the skin was bubbling up. A man named Claude who lived on the commune received horrific treatment as well. Rock poured boiling hot water on him, pulled out 11 of his teeth with a pair of pliers, broke each of his toes by hand, and then sliced his arm open with a piece of glass. He got one of his wives to break Claude's leg with a sledgehammer. Claude was ordered to walk around with an elastic band wrapped tightly around his testicles. He had to keep the elastic band on overnight, and then one of his testicles swelled up to the size of an orange. This caused irreparable damage. Then of course Rock decided to operate on him the next morning. He removed one of Claude's testicles and cauterized the wound with a hot iron. The next surgery Rock performed caused another death. This is the hardest one to hear. A woman named Solange started to complain of stomach pain. Rock of course concludes that the best thing to do is operate. He laid Solange on the table and punched her in the stomach. He then forced a tube into her rectum to perform an enema with molasses and olive oil. I don't know what his thing with olive oil is. I'm sorry guys, you're gonna
As someone who really likes to go on solo hikes, this story really made me question my decisions. Hi, my name is Ethan and here's everything you need to know in under 1 minute. On Saturday, April 29th, 2023, Lauren Heike was hiking in North Phoenix, Arizona when she was attacked from behind by 22-year-old Zion Teasley. Based on the state of her clothes and body, it was determined that she did try to fight off her attacker and she even was chased through barbed wired fence. When police arrived, they discovered that Lauren was unalived and had 15 stab wounds. At first, they thought this was a personal attack, being that there was 15 stab wounds. However, after pulling surveillance footage, that is where they saw Zion. His DNA was even found on her shoes and a weapon he had matched her wounds. On May 4th, police arrested him in his apartment, and it is unclear what his motive is, but he did tell police that he was Christian and struggled with his sexuality. He even stated, and I quote, "If I was going to do something like
my dog teddy bear, what the fuck?" Oh, Jesus.
Scariest videos I found online. A man is exploring the forest when he comes across an abandoned school bus. Only seems so abandoned. Someone claimed to have caught a troll on camera. It doesn't look CGI to me. So, is it real? Question time. What would you rather live through? A zombie apocalypse or an alien invasion? Let me know down below. A couple of friends were at a restaurant when one of their friends starts to laugh uncontrollably and then suddenly freezes.
Giants from cave systems of the Solomon Islands kidnapped a girl named Mango. She was forcefully held prisoner as a wife by one of the giants for over 2 decades. Believed to be dead, she re-emerged, found to be pregnant in a shocking and unrecognizable state. Mango gave birth to a half-breed boy who was killed at the age of 5 by one of her brothers. She remained in an unstable mental state until her death. Follow for
Let's talk about the lore behind the most disturbing boss in Darkest Dungeon. The Flesh. More scary stuff right here. The Flesh is a disgusting amalgamation of body parts and organs from the swine folk. But how exactly was this made, and who are the swine folk? Well, the ancestor, who's the narrator of Darkest Dungeon, wanted to summon eldritch beings from the beyond. But to do this, he needed to perform a ritual, and he had to have a vessel for each of the beings. He ended up using pigs as the vessels for the ritual, which is how you end up with swine folk like the swine prince here. But what about the flesh? All of the body parts from the failed rituals were thrown into the aqueducts of the Warrens. As it traveled through the aqueducts, eventually all that flesh formed together, each one having an eldritch conscience that became a giant formless mass. Simply put, it was easier to do it this way than dispose of the body parts properly.
So a lot of people have been feeling like the timeline is just a little messed up in their head, like when learning that Ludacris and Charlie Chaplin were alive at the same time. So here's a few more that have been bending my brain. And before we dive in, if you love horrors, hauntings, or mysteries, you'll love the podcast. So a lot of people don't know that by the time the colonists got to Plymouth Rock, there was already a hotel and restaurant fully functioning in Santa Fe. They did not discover a single thing. Clint Eastwood overlapped with both Marie Curie and Thomas Edison, and if he wanted to, which I'm sure he did, Genghis Khan could have invaded Oxford University. This tortoise named Harriet met both Steve Irwin and Charles Darwin, and those two events happened over 100 years apart from each other. We're actually closer to Keanu Reeves' 80th birthday than we are to the release of the original Matrix. Tobey Maguire in No Way Home was the same age as Willem Dafoe in the first Spider-Man. And finally, but my favorite, the last survivor of the Titanic.
What are you doing? Why are you still holding back? Have you forgotten what they said to us? What they did? They think you're a monster.
Have you guys ever heard of the smile dog? The legend speaks of a demonic dog from hell that has a human smile. Sit in the darkness and repeat, smile, my dog, smile. But first you have to look at this photo. Join the live.
No, 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 silly, to dry it. No, no, no. But it exploded, and they were both found dead.
The killer of 3 Texas sisters is walking free and no one is talking about it. On July 29th, 2022, Shamanique Oliver went to work. Meanwhile, her 31-year-old cousin, Paris Props, was watching after her 6 children. Around 9 p.m., she got a call from her cousin saying 3 of her daughters had disappeared from home. Props was using the neighbor's phone to make this call and didn't give any other details to Oliver other than her kids are just gone. She immediately left work and called 911, something that her cousin had failed to do. Authorities immediately started looking for Oliver's 3 daughters, and within hours they found a pair of shoes just 200 yards from the home at the edge of a pond, and this pond was on their neighbor's private property. Oliver immediately knew something was wrong because her children would never just walk barefoot through a field. In the early hours of July 30th, a dive team found the bodies of all 3 children. 9-year-old Ziariel, 8-year-old Amaya, and 5-year-old Tamari. Authorities first suspected this to be an accidental drowning. Their mother immediately knew that it wasn't, and the true cause of their deaths wouldn't come out until nearly a year later. An autopsy revealed that this was no accident. In March of this year, it was announced that the girls had lacerations on their faces, and they had died by strangulation. Their bodies were placed in the pond to conceal the fact that they were murdered. They were murdered 10 months ago, and still no suspects have been named. It's been pretty much silence from local authorities. And Oliver recently told the Daily Beast that her cousin isn't cooperating with investigators because
Do you ever wake up between 2 and 3 a.m. for no apparent reason? There's a 90% chance that something or someone is staring at you. Follow for more, or I'll let a bobcat loose in your bedroom.
Humanity's Darkest Pictures, Part 13. The Exorcism of Anneliese Michel. Anneliese was a teenager living with her parents in Germany in the late 1960s. One day, she suddenly began blacking out at school and exhibiting increasingly strange behaviors like hallucinating, eating spiders, and even drinking her own urine. Michel claimed to be possessed by the devil. She was subjected to 67 exorcisms, none of which improved her condition. She died of malnutrition at age 23 in 1976, weighing just 68 pounds.
I want to talk about this Grim Reaper sighting that happened at King Charles' coronation. In this video, you can see someone who is dressed like the Grim Reaper holding what looks like a scythe just scurrying through this corridor. Obviously, this is very spooky, but people have been going as far as saying it's the Grim Reaper, it's Queen Elizabeth, it's the ghost of Diana coming back. Most likely it was a verger, who's someone who volunteers at religious events. But my personal favorite theory is that people in the royal family have been dying suspiciously close to Taylor Swift releasing her albums. And she just announced that she's releasing Speak Now in July.
I can't believe I didn't know about this. Everything is under $10.
If you ever hear a voice in the woods, don't follow it.
But what happens is this creature comes up against this fence and it jumps this fence. And it was standing, we think, right in this where I'm standing right now. And my friend's inside right now. But I'm getting this footage. And did you just hear that? That was it. Oh. Guess I'm out.
What do you guys think it could be? Skinwalker? Ghost? Wendigo? Or something?
Legend or lie, the bosom serpent. A woman visited South America with her friends, and she had a great time. But upon her return home, she experienced severe chest pain. It was like nothing she had ever experienced before. It was literally like something was writhing around inside of her. It became so unbearable, she went to the ER to get examined, and told them that she thought there might be something living inside of her chest. The doctor brushed this off and prescribed her some medicine and sent her on her way. But the woman knew that this wouldn't help her, and in her desperation, she turned to a holistic doctor. This witch doctor listened to what she had to say and told her to lay down on her back immediately. Then he dangled a mouse over the woman's mouth, and to her horror, she felt something slither up her chest and out of her mouth. A snake latched onto the mouse, and as it did, the doctor grabbed it by its neck and ripped it out of her. She was horrified, but cured. Only question is this a legend or a lie?
Amanda ended up getting pregnant, and so he then kept her and the kid in the basement while the kid was like learning age years, like 5 to 6 years old, until one day he started getting comfortable because the kid was like, why is my mom chained up in the basement? So then he decided, okay, well, I'll stop with the chain. So he stopped putting them on chains, but he had this giant door that he would lock from the outside with like a bunch of locks on it, right? One day he got comfortable and he left and forgot to lock the door. The little girl then said to Amanda, Daddy's car isn't here. And immediately Amanda thought, oh my God, the door is open. She was able to push the door, the second door open enough to get her arm out. And so she was just screaming, help me, like banging on the door, right? And eventually this other guy who lived there was walking down the street and he heard it. So he comes over to the door, but the guy didn't speak any English. Another guy comes out and he was like, what's going on? I'm Amanda Berry. I've been missing for 10 years. Then the guy like realizes what's going on. He calls the cops. They kick in the door enough for her to crawl out from the bottom. Her and the little girl crawl out.